Welcome, friends. We're back on Belt of Truth Live with our good friend Jim Burr. We're going to roll right into it at the outset because we left you with a cliffhanger last time. We've been doing astronomy and history and Bible and science and spirit of prophecy. And last time, you might remember, it was, and what are we going to learn about the dinosaurs and the perspective biblically on the dinosaurs? I think that people have a lot of interest in this, don't
Yeah.
they, Jim? And it's like they really push the dinosaur thing on the kids. It's fun, it's interesting, it's intriguing. And you've studied into this as everything you've studied in great depth. I really appreciate, our listeners really appreciate what the Lord brings to the table through his servant, Jim Burr, amateur astronomist, inventor of binocular telescope. I won't do the whole bio, which we've done in previous weeks, but we're just very honored and glad to have our friend back with us. Tell us what's going on with the dinosaur thing and in the culture with evolution, and what's the biblical
Well,
perspective
it's
on
a
this?
sad, but dinosaurs are used to convince young and old alike that evolution is true, that they lived billions of years ago. Today, we want to talk about the mean dinosaur. Don't forget the mean ones. The Bible
Okay.
does talk about Leviathan and Behemoth, and they ate grass like an ox. But the mean ones would, like T-Rex, would eat everything he could catch. In the Garden of Eden, no, I don't think so. And it's amazing because some Christians say, well, they might have been up in the mountains. Maybe they were peaceful, maybe they ate grass. Folks, they've got teeth that are 10 inches long. How are you going to eat grass with a tooth like that? A serrated tooth. So we're going to explore this today, and I'll just give you a clue. What my research has developed is that T-Rex was GMO, genetically modified lizards, ostriches, alligators, crocodiles, turtles, egg layers. And evolution looks at the birds today and say, well, they're just dinosaurs. You just had a dinosaur for Thanksgiving dinner. You were this morning, a rooster woke you up. That's actually how a dinosaur woke you up. But why? Because we see all these similarities. I've discovered 40 similarities between birds and dinosaurs. And tell me, why does a cow go out here and eat rocks because they got a gizzard? Can you think you can get a cow to eat a rock? But the dinosaurs ate rocks. They got rocks in their gizzard to digest their food like chickens, So we're going to go into some of that. But in the Garden of Eden, no, I don't think so. And so
Okay, now Jim, you're not saying a dinosaur is a bird, but it's some kind of amalgamation. Is that where you're going with this?
yes,
I don't
it
want to
was
steal your thunder.
you could take like a monitor lizard lays an egg, and you could take a bird, an ostrich, lay an egg, and you've got information here to make something like a dinosaur that you're going to see here in a little bit. Okay, it's eggs. They're all egg layers.
Okay.
They're all egg layers.
Take
we
us
are
through
doing
this.
it today. You're going to see what's being done today around the world with GMO, human animal hybrids, human pig hybrids, human cow hybrids, human mice hybrids. And the Bible says, as in the days of Noah, I believe they were doing this. Dinosaurs were created. I don't think God made dinosaurs, but he made some big creatures, and he made lizards with teeth, things like that you could amalgamate. And so let's just go to the next slide. That says, I've already repeated that. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah. And so I think
you've got there, how could God create something like this giant, monstrous, 11-inch tooth, predator, and call it good?
My screen isn't big enough to read that, so I'm sorry, but thanks.
I'll read them for you. It's all right.
So how could God create something like that and call it good? Let's go on then to the next slide.
T-Rex, the ultimate killing machines that would eat everything it could catch. Question, in the Garden of Eden, every day was good.
And so as we move on to the next slide.
You want me to read that for you? Yeah, some Christians argue that dinosaurs were created peaceful. And then you go on to the violence of Jurassic Park. The movie was not far from the truth. Dinosaur life was one of violence. T-Rex, Sue, had many injuries to her legs, tail, skull, and ribs. She had multiple broken ribs on both sides that tried to heal. Most dinosaurs seem to have broken and re-healed bone injuries. Okay, what are you getting at there? Explain that to us.
They were violent. There's plenty of evidence they were violent. Most dinosaurs have bones, ribs and bones that had been broken and tried to reheal. Now, they were like Sue, that biggest female T-Rex that we have seen had broken ribs on both sides of her body. And here you see when you have a rib that's broken and tries to reheal and it's not been set, you know, you got a big knot between the area where it was broken. So the evidence is most dinosaurs had broken bones on all sides of their body. And so they were violent. T-Rex, you know, I mean, the Jurassic Park talks about how violent they were. And so we'll just go on to the next slide. Dinosaurs did exist, therefore they must somehow fit into the biblical framework. And the next slide, and God said to Adam, have dominion over everything that moves upon the earth. And Genesis 1:28, a 20,000-pound T-Rex, how are you going to have dominion over that? The ballistics people tell us an AK-47 would not bring down T-Rex. Okay, they weigh 20,000 pounds. The biggest elephants don't even weigh 20,000 pounds. The biggest elephants will weigh in about 11,000 pounds. So they're much bigger than an elephant, and they got the mouth like an alligator. And God said, have dominion over them. So I said, you know, the ballistic people say an AK-47 will not bring it down. You're going to need to get a RPG, rocket-propelled grenade, to bring these guys down. If they were in the Garden of Eden, God needs orientation with Adam and Eve. Adam, you better don't leave home without your AK-47. Eve, you better hang close to him. I mean, these were mean, and they would eat everything they could catch in the Garden of Eden.
But Jim, wasn't Adam like 15 feet tall?
Yeah.
That's not going to cut it, is it?
Cut it. Now, the next slide we have is amazing because this is the Hell Creek Formation in Montana. And here is a huge, huge T-Rex. What you see in that picture is a femur, probably 600-pound femur, that bone. And so Dr. Jack, I got his book here. Dr. Jack Horner is there, and Mary Schweitzer is there, and they're going to wrap this thing in plaster. We got to protect this thing. We don't want to scratch it. We don't want to mar it. And Mary Schweitzer goes, I want to know what's inside there. I've got an electric drill, battery operated drill. Can I drill in there? I want to get a sample. And Dr. Jack Horner freaks out. Are you kidding me? No paleontologist in their right mind would deface this treasure, sacred humanity. You know, this is a sacred treasure. We got to protect it. And so they put a sling around it. They wrap it. They put plaster around it. We got to protect it. Just cover it with plaster so it can't get scratched. Put a sling around it. What do they get? A big helicopter to lift it out of the formation. Guess what happens? It breaks. It falls out of the sling and breaks. And Dr. Horner said, okay, you can get your sample now. Well, in the next picture, you'll see hemoglobin, or you'll see the crack there actually was broken. They tried to fasten it back together. But Mary Schweitzer was able to get some samples from this thing. And I think God did it. I think God caused it to fall out of that sling so that this could happen. In the next picture coming up, you'll see the hemoglobin that she discovered, red blood cells and hemoglobin, and in this bone. After 65 million years, everybody's...
I don't think so. I've heard of this, Jim. I've never seen the picture.
Really?
That's amazing.
Well, it's a rock. After 65 million years, this thing is a rock, right? And there's red blood cells. And the paleontologists, they're freaking out. They won't accept it. They won't believe it. They got all kinds of excuses for it. But that's what happened in 2002, I think, was when this event happened. And they got the Chinook helicopter there to to bring it out, and careful, as careful as they were to protect this thing, and then to think that it slipped out. So they have sent T-Rex bones for carbon testing, and they sent multiple samples from 8 dinosaurs found in Texas, Alaska, Colorado, Montana. Shows that these tests that they were not 65 million years old. The testers were not told they were dinosaur bones. That's from newgeology.com. And so here's a response from CAIS. CAIS is Center for Applied Isotope Studies in the University of Georgia. The scientists at CAIS and I are dismayed by the claims that you and your team have made with respect to the age of the Earth and the validity of biological evolution. Consequently, we are no longer able to provide radiocarbon services in support of your anti-scientific agenda. C14 is anti-scientific?
Wow. We won't do science with you because we don't like your religious views.
And that's the Center for Applied Isotope Studies in the University of Georgia. I have instructed the radiocarbon lab to return your recent samples to you and not to accept any future samples for analysis. And you see,
Now, Jim, before you go on, they didn't make an argument about this particular case, did they? They didn't address the issue. They just said, we're not going to talk to you anymore.
That's right. And they weren't.
Like, there's no
carbon
argument.
14.
If they had a defense, they would have put it in that message.
Yeah. Well, carbon 14, you can't really test. You can hardly test to 50,000 years accurately in carbon 14. It builds up in the atmosphere. And really a good way to explain this is as if take a barrel and drill a bunch of holes and put a garden hose in there. And there's a point at which the water will run out of those holes as fast as it goes in. That's 33,000 years where it builds up to equilibrium. And so it really can't test beyond that because, it's running out as fast, it's building up as fast as it's depleting. And so carbon 14 doesn't really go back. They claim it could go maybe to 50,000 years. But so, there's all kinds of problems with carbon 14 we could go into. But let's move on and see the next slide we've got here. And so T-Rex was the ultimate killing machine. The earth was so corrupted before God. The earth was filled with violence. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, Genesis 6:11. And God saw how corrupt the earth was, for every creature. This is important. Every creature had corrupted its way on the earth. Every creature had corrupted its way. Did the creatures corrupt its way, or were the men involved in genetically modifying? Can you imagine how many clicks you could get on something like T-Rex that had human hands? You see the human hands on it? We're going to get into that. These T-Rex has got tiny, you'll see the shoulder of a man, you'll see the arm of a man, tiny little hands, thing as big as a barn, T-Rex, So it's interesting. I think it was, they were very smart. They were very smart. We went, we got the Nobel Prize for DNA, Watson and Crick. And 34 years later, we had cloned Dolly the sheep. We went from the Nobel Prize to cloning Dolly the sheep in 34 years. What could you do in 900 years with a better brain than we've got today? You see, they had this ability. There's scientific stuff we cannot explain. There's all kinds of stuff in the pyramids we can't explain. We can't explain how they can drill holes in granite 6 inches. They were supposed to be in the Stone Age. So they were very smart. They lived a long time, and we can see how that could happen. It's interesting, if you look at Daniel 12. Verse 4, it says, in the end of time, knowledge will be increased and men will run to and fro. It's interesting, from Adam to Paul Revere, the scientific, what had changed in travel and communication. He still talked It was the midnight cry of Paul Revere. He didn't have a megaphone or a cell phone, and he was riding on a horse. You see, for 6,000 years, it hadn't changed. The mode of transportation, the way of communicating. And then we went from Kitty Hawk to the moon in 60 years. So Daniel 12 verse 4 says knowledge is going to be increased. So we see that knowledge increase now, and we're doing, as in the days of Noah, we're doing it again. And you're going to see, I think you'll be blown away actually when you see what they're doing right now, you know. And so Jack Fortune, they say this is the most savage killer ever to have walked the earth, with teeth that could have sliced through steel, with 7,000-pound jaws that could have crushed a car. So some Christians say, you know, God could have created them to eat grass with 60 teeth, 10 inches long. Look at the list of herbivores here that have teeth only on the front and the bottom. They have grinders in the back, but their front teeth are designed for eating grass. The deer, the elk, the bison, the sheep, the goats, the camels, the llamas, alpacas, and so forth. It goes on and on and on. Dinosaurs don't look like that, don't have that, you know. And so that argument doesn't really hold water. But the Bible does talk about Leviathan and Behemoth. It's in Job 40 verse 17. Its tail is like a cedar tree, and its thighs are thick. Behemoth could be what it's talking about. He eats grass like an ox in Job 40:17. Reptiles never stop growing, and in Job 41:01, it talks about Leviathan. Similarities. So coming up as a list, evolutionists give 40 reasons or evidences that birds evolved from dinosaurs or have a common ancestor. How do we creationists deal with that? The consensus is birds are living dinosaurs. And it's almost indisputable. Birds are dinosaurs.
Okay, we could argue, I misunderstood you earlier. Explain that. You got to educate me on that.
Okay, this is the curator of American Museum of Natural History. This is Mark Norell. Mark Norell, the curator of natural history, says it's almost indisputable that birds are dinosaurs. We could argue that we live in the age of dinosaurs. The similarities between birds and dinosaurs are undebatable today, is what they're saying. They're looking at the skeleton. There are 10 similarities between the skeletal structures of dinosaurs and birds. And here I have a list of the similarities. We have dinosaurs that have beaks like a parrot. They have legs and, you know, like an ostrich. We have duck-billed dinosaurs, like the duck. We have web feet dinosaurs. And there you see at number 5, you see the eggs. Dinosaurs lay eggs, believe it or not, these huge things, and they actually incubate their eggs like a chicken. And would you believe that dinosaurs have wishbones like chickens? We just got all 40 similarities, and their bones have a structure like birds have a lighter structured bone and a webbing inside, and dinosaurs have the same thing. Then we see a triceratops that has a big bone on his head. There you see the cassowary bird. And we look at the alligator, we see the similarities with the mouth and the neck and so forth. And there's actual stones that were in the gizzard of dinosaurs. Those actually came out of gizzards. Dinosaurs walk around eating rocks so they can digest their food. And we have dinosaurs with 3 toes like a chicken, 3 out the front, 1 out the back. Their pairs of chromosomes are similar. The DNA is similar. And so we see many of these things that are evidence that you know, between birds, the blood vessels and contents are similar in all respects to the blood vessels recovered from ostrich bones, Dr. Schweitzer reported. And they're all egg layers. Christmas dinner links dinosaurs to birds. And so Dr. Jack Horner, in the next picture here, you'll see Dr. Jack Horner is going to build a dinosaur from a chicken egg. He says extinction doesn't have to be forever. Well, it's interesting because Harvard and Yale have already they're trying to do it too, work on this, resurrected a dinosaur from a chicken egg. They have put teeth back into a chicken. Chicken don't have teeth, they just swallow the seed
Wow.
and it grinds it up. But Harvard and Yale have both put teeth back into a chicken egg now. So
Wow.
what do you tell Johnny when he comes home and says that dinosaurs were real? Well, you tell Johnny is dinosaurs were GMO, genetically modified lizards, ostriches, all kinds of birds, alligators, crocodiles, turtles, mostly all egg layers. And Johnny is taught evolution in school. Birds have evolved from dinosaurs. A group at Harvard and Yale, I already mentioned that. Okay, and
Well, the Harvard and Yale scientists aren't going to spend millions of years trying to make the dinosaur happen. I mean, they're doing this in a generation, aren't they? I mean, at least one aspect of the dinosaur.
Yeah, that's right. And the
We
next
don't
picture,
have that same knowledge they had back then, though.
no. In the next picture, you'll see Chickenosaurus, Dr. Jack Horner's. Here's what he's trying to do. Make a dinosaur from a chicken egg called Chickenosaurus. He's working on this, and he says the tail is the most difficult thing. But he says what we're doing, we're going into the gecko. We're going to identify the genes in a gecko that make the tail. And now we've got Chickenosaurus, a dinosaur resurrected from a chicken egg.
That's funny.
As in the days of Noah, yes.
Yeah, okay, explain that. That's a prophecy. Jesus said we should expect this.
What the things that happened in the day of Noah are happening today, and we're going to get to that as I show you what's going on in the world today with genetically modified, animals. The antediluvians were advanced in many ways. Consider the Tower of Babel. There's a multitude of achievements we cannot explain. The pyramids were advanced in technology and mystery. And in the next slide, you see a sophisticated device. I can't pronounce the name. It was an analog computer that we discovered in the ocean, made about 1,600 years, about 2,000 years old, I think. But it wasn't surpassed until 1,500 years later. And this thing we've x-rayed. In the next picture, you'll see all of the gears that are in that device that predicted all kinds of astronomical things, eclipses and solstice and all kinds of things. And so we see advanced evolutionists say that we had the Stone Age, then the Bronze Age, then we had the Iron Age. According to evolution, the Iron Age started about 1200 BC. According to the Bible, the Iron Age started about 3800 BC because Tubal-Cain in Genesis 4, he forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron. And I believe great technology was lost at the time of the flood in the Tower of Babel. It's interesting, at the Tower of Babel, God says, let us go down and confound their language, else what? Nothing will be impossible to them. And even the application of the most modern technology has failed to unravel all the mysteries. Here you see the stones that are so tightly, look like machined or carved with diamond cutters or whatever. You can't even get a business card between the cracks in those stones. So we see advanced, technology there. There was electroplating, and we see the Chinese had developed aluminum 2,000 years before we did. That's very difficult. It takes a lot of technology to take and deal and refine aluminum. The ancients were so advanced scientifically, they could do GMO engineering. The dinosaurs were GMO lizards, crocodiles, alligators, ostriches, birds, turtles, mostly egg layers. We'll now look at the evidence for that. We must, we have from the Nobel Prize of DNA to cloning doll the sheep. I already mentioned that. As in the days of Noah, it will be in the coming of the Son of Man. So will it be when the coming of the Son of Man is. And I've already mentioned the Tower of Babel, but we have human-animal hybrids are now legal to grow in Japan. A Japanese government has granted its approval to the University of Tokyo to proceed with a controversial stem cell research project that aims to develop human-animal Frankenstein hybrid creatures from embryo to life, as this was August 12, 2019. Human cells, and this slide, will be grown in rat and mouse embryos,
Okay.
then brought to term in surrogate animals as part of an experiment set to be carried out by the University of Tokyo. It used to be 14 days. Now, the new law, they can bring them to full term. Scientists claim they can now use gene editing techniques to create smarter monkeys by making their brains more human-like. This is from MIT Technology Review. So it's it's current science. When DNA
Jim,
is taken,
explain that picture to us. That animal hybrid. What is that?
I'm sure that's a Photoshop of what they
Okay.
are planning to
Okay.
do. Yeah,
All right. Well,
I think
call me a conspiracy theorist, but if they're announcing this in 2019 publicly, they've been doing it for longer
yeah,
periods before that. I am guessing, speculating that there are advancements way beyond what they've announced, and that we're seeing fulfillment of prophecy in ways that we're not even aware, except those in these laboratories. I won't ask you to comment on that, but that's human nature as far as the history I've read.
that's exactly right. You see, in the U.S., we have laws to that effect. But you take in China, you take in other countries, in the UK, what they've been doing for a long time, actually. I've seen videos of, well, I don't even need to describe it. It was so horrible what they
Uh,
had done. And yeah, I'm sure that it has been carried on all over the world, and particularly like in China. Who's going to stop them? And
yeah.
from what they're able to do. So let's see what our next slide is here. Okay. When DNA is taken from one organism and inserted into the genome of another, there is theoretically no boundaries on the extent of change that can be accomplished. Gene splicing is a technique used in genetic engineering. Scientists fearlessly create bizarre human-animal hybrids, cow-human hybrids, pig-human hybrids, and even mouse-human hybrids. This is happening every single day in labs all over the Western world, but most people have never heard about it. As in the days of Noah, we come back to that again. And in Acts 2 and 7, the Bible says, in last days, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and your daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions. Your old men will dream dreams and visions, not like Nostradamus and Gene Dixon, Edward Casey, astrology. They use palm reading, Ouija boards, crystal balls. It's the Bible doesn't. The Bible's very, very specific. Nebuchadnezzar, you are that head of gold. It's interesting. In Nostradamus, there's an article I read that said the people who interpret Nostradamus say that Kim Jong-un from North Korea will be killed or will die last year, 2023. People who interpret. You don't have to interpret. When God gives a vision, it's very specific. Nebuchadnezzar, you are that head of gold. And so we're going to look at what has been said here, what was revealed to Ellen White about that. But I want to back up just a little bit. Oh, my mind just went blank here. I'm going in too many different directions, I guess.
Oh, you got
Okay.
so much.
Okay. This is interesting. This is my theory. I believe that you could develop T-Rex in 1 or 2 generations.
Huh.
You take Brontosaurus, big as this, twice as big as my shop is here. Huge creature, right? He lays eggs. The Brontosaurus lays eggs. He broods on eggs. He eats grass like an ox. You take the genes, and they've talked about gene splicing, and there's no limit of what you can do if you take the genes. And Brontosaurus lays eggs. So take an egg from a Brontosaurus, take an egg from an alligator, and put the mouth of the alligator on the Brontosaurus, because the Brontosaurus eats grass like an ox. You've already got this huge creature. Now you put a huge, ugly mouth on him. You've got T-Rex. So I think in just a short period of time, you could have these terrible T-Rex.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's my idea. Okay, nothing to base it on other than just what I'm reading here. So let's continue. I'm going to suggest that the Lord revealed the answer. Does a Christian have any other answer except GMO? I believe it's the only answer that makes sense. Well, of course, we get nervous when we hear about prophets, but the Bible says in Acts 2 and Joel 2 that in the last days he's going to pour out his spirit on all flesh. And Moses said, I wish all of the Lord's people were prophets and that the Lord would place his spirit on them. And if we look at 1 Corinthians 14, it says, follow after charity and earnestly pursue spiritual gifts, but above all, that you may prophesy. Despise not prophesying in 1 Thessalonians 5:20. The Bible is clear. Dozens of times there will be prophets in the last days. Do we believe the Bible? The gifts of the Spirit all list prophecy. In 1 Corinthians 14, 12 times, no, it's actually 14 times, it mentions prophets or prophecy. And so we should not be surprised that God has sent some prophets, but of course we have to be careful because we're warned of false prophets and we have to test prophets. So a vision from God would be very specific, like Daniel said to Nebuchadnezzar, you are that king, head of gold, not like Nostradamus or Dean Jerkson. The Lord does nothing, but he reveals his secrets to his servants, the prophets. Amos 3:70. Well, Ellen White had some vision on this. It shed some light here. And she says, we cannot believe that in the Garden of Eden, there was bloodthirsty beasts, ill-tempered, snarling, and vicious creatures. And because everything was good, how could God say it was good? Look at this, the picture here that these guys are trying to escape, and there's arrows in T-Rex, and that is just like a mosquito bite to him, you know. So it's interesting when we look at T-Rex, and Ellen White has said, and this is in Spiritual Gifts, Volume 3, page 64, if there was one sin above another, which called for the destruction of the race by the flood, it was the base crime of amalgamation. We would say GMO because they didn't talk about genes there, genetically modified. We'd say the base crime of GMO, of man and beast, which deface the image of God and cause confusion everywhere. Are people confused today over dinosaurs? Now take a look at the hand, the shoulder, the elbow, the hand. That's a human hand on that T-Rex, right? The base crime of amalgamation of man and beast. And then she goes on. Every species of animal which God had created were preserved in the ark. The confused species which God did not create, so there were confused species on the planet that God did not create, which were the result of amalgamation. Okay, you know what amalgamation is, or hybridization, or we would say GMO, genetically modified. They were destroyed by the flood. This is in Spiritual Gifts, Volume 3, page 75. Amalgamation is combining two or more things to form a new thing. Leviticus 19 says, obey my laws, never crossbreed different kinds of animals.
So does that mean, dog breeds? Like we shouldn't have, pedigrees and new dog breeds coming from previous ones?
Well, no, this is, you try to go from a cat to a dog or.
Exactly. Yeah. I thought that word kinds, if you go through the Creation Museum, they give you a good education on that.
Yeah. Right. And also in a manuscript 65, she says, Satan engineered some of the amalgamations or GMO using his ingenious method. Every noxious herb is of his sowing. And by his ingenious method of amalgamation, he has corrupted the earth with terrors. And in Psalm 11, it says, the Lord tries the righteous, but the wicked, and him that loves violence, his soul hates. So you could see how people creating dinosaurs would love violence and pain and destruction. And I mean, you could go into and see that dinosaurs were armor plated. I mean, they are some of the most terrible creatures, that you could ever imagine.
Your arrow may not even pierce it anyway, right?
Yeah, right, right.
Well, you brought something out there. I'm always learning from you, Jim. This amalgamation of man and beast. I, looked at the white estate and looked at, this is one of those challenging quotes that the critics point out. And it's like, well, beasts were amalgamated among themselves, and man amalgamated when the sons of God, in other words, the descendants of Seth, intermarried with the daughters of men, in other words, the descendants of Cain, and that was the amalgamation. So there was amalgamation of man and amalgamation of beasts. But you're saying there actually may have been some intertwining of man and beast in this GMO project antediluvian.
Absolutely. When you look at, I found 40 similarities between birds and dinosaurs. We're talking mean dinosaurs, 40 similarities. And the evidence, I think, is overwhelming, because wishbones in a dinosaur, cows don't have wishbones, horses don't have wishbones. They don't eat rocks, so they can digest their food like birds do. You see, when you look at all these similarities, and now you see what they're doing today, again, the same type of thing is being done all over the world today. And they say, when you do gene editing, there is theoretically no limit. There's no limit on what you can do with gene editing. Now, eggs, you see, everyone is an egg layer except the human there. But there's ways of dealing with that. If you were to go into a mammal and take out an ovum and put it in a petri dish and put it in the lab and do your thing and then put it back into, they can carry it to gestation. That's the difficult thing. But an egg is going to hatch. These eggs are going to hatch. And in the lab, it's very easy to do gene editing from egg to egg, you see, to take what you want, take the genes out. They were so smart. I'm sure they had maybe even electron microscopes in those days. They had advanced so much. There's evidence they had airplanes.
Oh, tell us about that. Or do you have a whole presentation on ancient history and ancient technologies that you want to do another time?
I really don't have that much on it, but
you got a few minutes. Hit us with the airplanes.
Well, there's evidence if you go way back into ancient history in India. There's documentation that is written about airplanes that had a mercury motor that had the roar of a lion. Airplanes that had a mercury motor, the roar of a lion. There's evidence they even had nuclear bombs. We have found 20 areas around Earth where the sand is melted to glass. We have human bones that have 50 times the radiation that your or anybody's bones in the ground have. There's evidence, there's a lot of evidence, and I sometimes joke, if I tell you this, you won't believe anything else I say. But
if they made it this far in interview number 4, Jim, they're with you.
But there is evidence that they had great technological advancement, and I think we see it here in dinosaurs. And I'm totally 100% convinced that T-Rex, these mean dinosaurs, were not created and not in the Garden of Eden. I totally believe what Ellen White said. There's so much evidence, as we did last time. You saw that she saw, she was given visions of stuff that works, and those plants are still doing amazing stuff, following what she said. I'm experimenting on another set yesterday. I started. Let's see, it was on Tuesday, I think it was. Tuesday, this is Wednesday. Okay. And I put batteries in to see if a 1.5 volt battery would cause those seeds to germinate. We know the magnets did it in 3 days. And so.
Now, you didn't tell the audience about that yet, though.
Well,
that was just, you were texting me. You got to explain that to people. This is incredible. So back up. What did it say in the spirit of prophecy about electricity and the seed? And then tell us about the magnets.
How much time do we have?
Oh, all the time you need.
So I've been researching this for years. How is a seed in a pyramid for 4,000 years? How does it start growing? It takes electricity to get a seed to grow. There is an alternator called an ATP motor in every cell in your body, of billions of them in your body. Every seed in the DNA has a little alternator that produces the energy to replicate the DNA, to copy it. And I have searched the internet for 2 years. Nobody can tell me how do you jumpstart a seed that's been in a pyramid for 4,000 years? How do you jumpstart that alternator? Your car, you think you could jumpstart your car after 4,000 years? You got to jumpstart that alternator to get the electricity to make that seed grow. Nobody can answer it. I talked to a professor in the university of biology, PhD. What is the secret that jumpstarts that? How do you jumpstart a seed? And he says, well, put it in the ground, you get water and make it moist, it's going to grow. Well, it's really interesting because Ellen White, who wasn't a biologist, didn't have any kind of a degree in Christopic Lessons, page 63, talks about the seed. There's a germinating principle, but she says electricity must be conveyed to the buried seed. And so I decided to experiment. I took a donut magnet and cucumbers, and I started with 3 cucumber plants, and I buried like 6 seeds in each one, and I put a big donut magnet around one, and they pop up in 3 days. The bag says it takes 6 to 14 days to germinate. I got seeds popping out in 3 days. And in 1 week, they're huge, tall. The other ones didn't. The first experiment, they didn't pop up. It took them forever to pop up. The last one I ran, again, in 3 days, they are now 3 inches tall. And they all germinated. All 6 of the seeds are germinated.
100% germination.
And they're tall. And the other one, if you want to, I'll go get it. If you want to see it, it'd take me about 2 seconds. I got 2 look like they're going to make it. And all 6.
Okay, you're going to see the option A and the option B here. Using the magnet to convey the electricity to increase the germination rate and the growth rate of these plants. And then he's going to tell you about what he did with batteries. This is new to me. He was texting me all these pictures. I'm like, oh, you got to show people this. And this is new info about the batteries. But first, the donut magnet.
This is a week. I was a week on Monday. Look how tall they are. All 6 germinated. And I had a donut magnet. I took the magnet off so you could see the plants better. And here is the ones that didn't have the magnet. Now it looks like I got 3 that are going to survive. Look how short they are.
Oh,
and look how tall these ones are. If you can see it.
That's
okay. So this is the magnet one. And I'm going to get 3 out of 6. Looks like that's all it's going to germinate is 3 out of 6.
Jim, do you know anything about the reported planting method for fruit trees that was supposedly advocated? I haven't found it in writing, but passed on through the family from Ellen G. White about dig a hole like this and then put this layer in this and then this do stones. What do you know about that?
I could show you. I have a copy of her suggested method that really does wonders on fruit trees. And you put rocks in the bottom, and then you do certain things, and it does work. And we tried to follow it.
Why the rocks?
I'm not sure, but
yeah, I did it, and I'm like, why am I doing this? I know why I'm doing it, because you could tell me all of man's greatest innovations on horticulture and agriculture, and none of it compares to I was shown, and she was shown. The angel, the Lord showed her. And we planted trees this way, and then we did a couple in our home in Michigan that weren't planted that way. Totally different results. In just a couple years, we got trunks like that, where they come spindly little things like that from Home Depot or whatever, and it works. But sorry, I interrupted. You were going to batteries. If you want to say more about the fruit trees, that's fine. Or take.
Well, I just thought I would experiment with batteries, and so I have started 2 more. The fiber ones, and I just poked wires in each side and put in a 1.5 volt battery on one of them, and the other one I put 3 volts to see if there's a difference. To see that because I know they can happen in 3 days with a magnet. So let's see if electricity that way, and of course you got moisture, so you get conduction. And I was actually measuring the voltage at different points along the way. because there's voltage on each side of the magnet and there's water there. So I'm checking the voltage to be sure it doesn't run the batteries down. So I just kind of playing a little bit with that to see if there's something.
Well, you'll have to report the
Well, yeah,
results to us
yeah.
another time. Jim, what are we going to hit next? I mean, I know we did 4, we did our month, but I mean, you've always got new things. So you either tell us now what maybe we could talk
Well,
about next time, or send me a
yeah, what you
message.
need to do is go look at a picture of the backside of the moon. The backside of the moon is beat up 10 times worse than the front side of the moon. How does a Christian explain that? Evolution says, of course, it's been here billions of years. That's what we expect. It's going to be beat up. There is something happened at the time of the flood. Asteroids are in the news every week. Hitting the earth, damaging the earth, we're going to get hit, or we're going to get hit. We got 1,000, 2,000 asteroids we're watching. There were no asteroids in the Garden of Eden. There were no mean dinosaurs in the Garden of Eden. Something has happened at the time of the flood, and we've got some powerful proof of what happened at the time of the flood.
Okay, we need to do some flood science together next time, I think. We haven't done that too. But I'm getting your dinosaur, just to kind of tie a bow on that as we close here. So there were amalgamations that were done, especially with egg-laying creatures, which is where you can have the most effect on this. I think you made the case that this was GMO just by that fact alone, because you don't see any crazy, monstrous creatures like that out of the mammalian and other families of animals. It's the birds and the reptiles that are laying the eggs where you can do the greatest manipulation. You get these monstrous creatures, they don't survive the flood, they're extinct. That God preserved all of his kinds on the flood. Am I getting that right? Anything that was man's conglomerations, amalgamations, was not of God, and of course it perished in the flood. And I take that on inspiration. I take that from a Bible study you gave to us, but I also see the science.
The confused creatures which God did not create. You see, the evolutionists are so totally confused about T-Rex. How is it he has no usable hands that have any meaning? They can't explain how did he evolve these itty-bitty hands. And they're confused.
Yeah.
They're confused creatures which God did not create, which the result of amalgamation or GMO were destroyed by the flood.
So it's one minor thing. I encourage people to take their kids to the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter. We love the creation science that they are up to, and there are little things that you get a little bit more light on if you read in the Spirit of Prophecy, where you'll be like, now kids, be aware, they've got T-Rex here in the Ark. We see that a little differently, and study it out and see, is this the case from what the light that we've been given. So they're actually, by the way, Jim, not at the Ark, but at the Creation Museum, there's one of these big, dioramas with all the little, miniature, it's like a model ark. Yeah. You've seen it. Did you notice that up the ramp go all the regular creatures, but in the foreground, not going on the ark, is T-Rex. And I thought, did they know what you and I know about that? It was just kind of an interesting anomaly compared to, we think he had these teeth to eat watermelons and, that kind of stuff that they feel they have to do. I saw on that exhibit, T-Rex was not getting on the ark.
It's interesting, yes. And by the way, this is the first time I have done T-Rex and any Adventist. I've been on all these Adventist networks. We've never done, you're the first with this story I've done today.
Oh, that's an honor, Jim. I consider you a friend. I remember sitting in your living room. This is about 8 or 9 years ago, up in your old place in near Denver, up in the mountains there.
Yeah, well,
I forgot the name
Evergreen,
of the town. Yeah, Evergreen. And you were showing me this ancient history. I wanted to ask you about these ancient airplanes and stuff. So thanks for bringing that in. That shows. I think it just really validates the perspective that we have, that these were not Neanderthals, these were not cavemen, these were not people with no intelligence. They were highly intelligent. They had science beyond what we have. And I think God's going to interpose very soon, with Jesus soon coming, so that we don't repeat the same things that they did, and we won't be able to get very far in these Frankenstein experiments that are going on in secretive and open laboratories. And thank you for blowing the whistle on that. I think being aware of these prophetic indicators gives us a sense of urgency to prepare for the soon coming of the Lord and to have confidence in his word, as you always show in your presentations, that true science, rightly done, not science so falsely so called, but true science, it harmonizes perfectly with God's word.
Yeah, I agree. Well said.
Well, friends, thanks for joining us again. And thanks again to our friend Jim Burr. I know you've all been enjoying these episodes as we've explored these important themes. And I invite everybody to follow the Jim Burr YouTube page as well. I saw that on your last slide there, Jim, to learn more of what he has to share. He's been on 3ABN. You got a series of how many programs on 3ABN?
Probably, I don't know, maybe 80 or 100.
20, 80 or 100. We have the 22-part series.
It was
It's something
22,
like that,
and there
we've
was
been
another
watching
of 16, and then there was Thursday Night Live. I think we did 12 two-hour Thursday Night Live programs. We
Oh,
did 21 Attributes
fantastic.
of God, and and we've been on Hope, and John Bradshaw. We just finished one with John Bradshaw. Did you see that one?
Not
Go
yet.
to-
Oh man, you'll find Jim everywhere,
Go-
guys. Find him on It
Go
Is
to
Written.
Jim Burr, John Bradshaw.
Okay.
And we got into DNA. He was totally blown away. We got 12,000 hits overnight on that one.
Fantastic. Oh man, this is awesome. So Jim's not fading into the sunset in his 80s here. He's you're on fire, Jim. I love you and your family. Say hello to your lovely wife. Our family says hello. And to the Belt of Truth family, we bid you all farewell this evening, and thanks for joining us. God bless you
Thank
all.
you.